Welcome back to another episode of TaylorMade Rides. And today we're going to talk about 5 classic cars and 5 classic trucks that you could get as a high school, college student, or someone wanting to get a cheaper project car or truck. Now, these are just opinions that I have or vehicles that I think would make a great start to get someone who knows very little about the automotive industry to get them into cars and easy modifications that you could do to each one. Okay, now I'll throw in some pictures I pulled from Facebook Marketplace of real listings that are going on in the Chicagoland area near me, so that way you can see there are actual real options out there. Now, these vehicles, again, are vehicles for someone who is just trying to get into it but wants to have fun on the weekends. Maybe it's not their primary driver, maybe it is, but something that they can have fun with and drive around town. First off, we have are the 5 vehicles, the cars on my list. And taking place here at number 1, we have a very easy, reliable car you could get to that is fun and sporty, the Mazda Miata. Now, about 1990 to 1997 is the year that we're looking at here with the 1.6 or 1.8. The 1.6 and 1.8 came in at about 90 to 140 horsepower. So not a whole lot, but you have to keep in mind the weight of that vehicle. It's not a big car. Now, the torque was a little bit more, or torque was a little bit less at about 100 to 120 pound-feet. Again, not overly impressive, but a nice base and a nice start. Now, the 0 to 60 time was 8 seconds or 9 seconds or so, so it was pretty good for its time. And again, I think that weight really helped. Now, some of the things that you can do for this are lower it down. You put coilovers on it. You do that in a weekend. It looks really nice. You could do a cold air intake to try and boost that number up a little bit. Roll bar or aided or upgraded sway bars, as you could take this vehicle to the track. This would be a great one to see where you would start out with as a stock car to where it can come after a year as a more modded out vehicle. Again, Mazda Miata taking our first spot. The second one here, we're switching up to a little bit of a European style with the BMW 3 Series. Now, this is 1992 to 1999. We got a couple options here. We have the engine 1.9 liter, making about 189, about 200 horse, and that's about a 2.5 liter engine. Now, the torque is about 181. So again, just like the Mazda Miata, we're kind of on the lower side, but with tons of room for improvement. Now, the 0 to 60 time is a little bit more impressive than our Miata. It comes in at a whopping 7 seconds from 0 to 60. But it's rear-wheel drive, it's a smooth ride, and it has a ton of aftermarket support. Now, some of the mods that you could do for this one are, again, an intake or a performance filter setup that you have that some people swear really makes a difference. You can find out for yourself. We also have an ECU chip tune, so you can have this vehicle tuned. There are, like I said, a lot of support for this, so you can go out there and have this vehicle tuned at just about any Euro performance shop. They've seen these before. Now, we have our suspension refresh, so you can go ahead and get sway bars, coilovers, any sort of steering or suspension handling component to upgrade this at the track or just daily driver. All right, that again was our BMW 3 Series. Moving on, we do have a Volkswagen Golf. Now, honorable mention here, I do like Volkswagen Golfs. I think they're pretty sweet, little compact car. And James Pumphrey, former Donut Media creator, he is now at Speed doing his own YouTube channel. I follow him, and he is modding out a Volkswagen Golf and does a ton of Volkswagen content, and I think it's really neat. He's got one, and it kind of added this to the list. The engine you can get is a 1.8 liter. Sure, there are other options here, but this is the 85 to 92, and again, there are different engine options. But this one makes about 138 horsepower, so we still really haven't broken the 200 horsepower range yet. But keep in mind the size of these vehicles. Okay, they're pretty small, compact, lightweight. 0 to 60 time is about 8.5 seconds. So again, it's not going to be winning any stoplight races here, but a nice, fun weekend cruiser. Some of the things you can do, again, lowering it down, sway bar links for handling, weaving in and out of traffic. You can also have this vehicle tuned if it's got a fuel injection system on it, or you can do an exhaust mod. Catback exhaust, straight pipes, put a certain type of muffler on the rear side of it. That all are beginner level things that you can do in your own driveway or relatively inexpensive at a shop. All right, and number 4 we have coming in is the Ford Mustang. A lot of you thought or should have seen this one coming. It is a classic pinnacle or staple of American muscle. Came in first introduced in 1964 and a half, but the ones we're talking about are 1994 to 1998. Or the SN95. Now, this engine was this vehicle came with the 4.6 V8, and this put us in our list here in the 200 horsepower range. We're starting out on the low side of 215, and our higher side is about 225. So respectable, not huge, but again, respectable. The torque for this is a little bit better. It comes in at about 285 to almost 300 at 290, and again, that's the pound-feet of torque. Now, 0 to 60 is one of our faster vehicles here. It's a 6.5 to 7. Now, that can change with the size tire you have, which is pretty easy to do. And this vehicle is pretty sharp. And again, they're pretty affordable. Now, the beginning mods you can do on this is an exhaust system. Harder to do in your home or driveway, but still relatively inexpensive if you go to a nice exhaust shop. You can also do a cold air intake or just a different intake system that'll help that engine breathe a little bit, or you can do a nice set of headers. You can also do lowering springs or shocks or adjustable coilovers to help handle or drive on the road and make your experience a whole lot better. Now, again, that was the Ford Mustang. Coming in on our last vehicle of the 5 for our cars is the Acura Integra. So we've got quite the range here. And this one is the 1994 to 1999 model, the LS or GS. And the engine that we're looking at here is the 1.8 inline 4. This engine made a whopping 140 to 170 horsepower, depending on the model you get, with a staggering 125 pound-feet of torque. That's about equivalent to a new lawnmower these days. But 0 to 60 time was 7.5 about to 8.5. So again, it's not winning any stoplight races, but it'll put you back in the seat if you pin it all the way. Now, it's light, agile, reliable, fun, and again, easy to mod. There are a lot of these vehicles out there, and parts are good to get. Some of the things that you can get, and you'll notice there's a trend here, is lowering them down. Coilovers, cold air intake, again, intake system or exhaust header or headers. But you can also put a nice catback exhaust. And for those of you who don't know what that means, is from your catalytic converter, the piece that filters out all the harmful particles your engine makes. But from that cat back, you can straight pipe it, a smaller exhaust, and make that vehicle sound just the way you want to. Now, these are pretty cool cars. You don't see a lot of these built, or at least I don't, at least here in the Chicagoland area. Maybe I don't get out enough. But those were the 5 cars that you could easily get after a summer of work as a high school or college student. Moving on to the trucks here, my favorite, and these are all vehicles, the cars and trucks, under $7,000, okay? We have our first one here is a mighty powerful Dodge Ram 1500. Now, we're looking at 1994 to 1998 body style, and this engine came with the 5.7 Magnum V8. Now, the horsepower is at 245, so it is, again, a truck, so it was designed to pull and haul things. And the torque was in the 335 pound-feet range, so pretty respectable. And honestly, its 0 to 60 time is right up there with the cars at about 8.5 to 9 seconds. So this thing was pretty cool. It's a classic Dodge with a thumpy V8, and you can really make these trucks sound nice. Some of the higher performance or some of the performance things you could do is a lift kit. Now, if you buy a two-wheel drive one, which are a lot cheaper than four-wheel drive, you can lower these down and they look pretty darn cool. You can also do a nice exhaust with headers. You can do a leveling kit on them. You can put different rear suspension or different handling parts in the front to make this thing really sound good and handle great on the street. Now, being that it is a truck, it does have a little bit wider wheel wells in the back. You can put a wider tire. In the front, if it's four-wheel drive, you can also match the setup. But if it's a two-wheel drive, you have the potential for a pretty sweet muscle truck. Now, moving on, here is our Ford F-150, the OBS style. So 1992 to 1996. And I really honed in on a certain engine here, the 5.8. And again, this is the F-150. You had the option in the 90s here with our F-150s for a 300 straight six, 4.9 liter. You had the 302, which is a 5.0, and then our Windsor here, the 5.8, our 351. You had three different engine options here, and I picked the biggest one, which put this truck at about 210 to 245 horsepower. Great thing here, much like the Dodge, as I forgot to mention, is you can get these in standard transmission or stick shift, which creates a older truck feel or creates a better sense of handling, a driver vehicle connection. Sounds dumb, but it is true. And the 0 to 60 time with this is, you'll get there at about 9.5 seconds. Good thing is it's a nice V8 truck, so you can add, and these engines that were produced in these vehicles, all of three of them were produced for over 50 years or 40 years. So there was quite the time, and there's quite the aftermarket support. Now, some of the things you can do is headers for these, an intake system. If your vehicle has a carburetor on it, maybe someone in the past swapped it over, you can put a nice intake carb setup, or you can spend a little bit extra and have that tuned. The 1992 and 1998 was a crossover from OBD1 to OBD2. So that's your computer diagnostics. If it's an OBD2, it's a little bit easier to tune, but there are people out there who can tune the first gen. Now, you can also do an intake spacer, help you get a little bit more air fuel flow in there, headers. You could do a actually upgraded throttle body on some of these. And so there are a lot of aftermarket support, and you can join a lot of forums or people online that have modded these vehicles out. If you get a two-wheel drive one, again, it's cheaper. You can have a muscle truck setup with some wide tires in the back. There are a ton of people who have done that, and these trucks sound pretty good, and they are actually pretty fun to drive. I've had a couple of them. Moving on here, we have our Silverado, honorable mention as well. But this is the 1999 version, which came with the 5.3 V8 Vortec. This one produced a 270 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. Now, I do believe you could get the 350 was also an option in this model or this year. So that's also a fantastic engine, arguably one of the greatest engines ever built. Now, we do have a 0 to 60 time beating our F-150. This one comes in at 7.5 seconds is the fastest. 8 seconds is a little bit on the higher side. Now, it's a modern feeling with an even bigger aftermarket world than the Ford. This one, you'll hear a lot of people say LS swap. The engine in this one is an LS. So you can have a ton of camshaft options, header options, heads for it. And of course, we're getting a little bit deep there, but this is a great vehicle to start your base build off of. Now, if it's four-wheel drive, again, it'll be a little bit more on the higher side, but you'll see a lot of people lower or slam these Silverado trucks, and they turn them into a race truck. So you can also do a handheld tuner with these, are relatively inexpensive. So that is something you can tune yourself. You get it shipped to you in the mail. You can do an intake kit, cold air intake, throttle body. You can do different intakes altogether. You can change, and they're relatively, like I said, inexpensive. We have a lift kit or lower kit, right? You can slam this to the ground if you want to go a little bit faster, or if you're looking to tow or mud the truck, you can lift it, throw some big tires on. Now, we're going to keep moving on here to a Nissan Hardbody, or D21, 1986 to 1997. This is a little bit different. You don't see a lot of these on the road. This will be, I have a feeling, a little bit more on the closer to $7,000 range, but it is still a very reliable truck, and it looks very cool as it is classic as all get out. The engine that came in this model that we're looking at is the 2.4 inline 4. So that means 4 cylinders with a horsepower of 134 and a torque of 154. Now, this truck, you're not buying this truck for races, so your 0 to 60 is about 11 to 12 seconds, okay? But most of these trucks you can get standard or stick shift, which again really sets that cool factor. Some of the things that you can do are off-road tires and wheels. If you get a 4-wheel drive model or a lift kit, you can also put in an exhaust system or a header on this to slightly improve your gas mileage. But overall, with this small engine in this truck, you're going to get a pretty good MPG out of this vehicle. Now, you can do a ton of stuff interior-wise for sound system, exhaust. Well, that's not interior, but you can do the exhaust. You'll hear it and it sounds nice. But you can also change the wheel and tire setup. And quite frankly, it's a blank canvas for whatever you would want to do, relatively inexpensive. Coming in here on our last one is the Jeep Comanche. A little bit out of left field here, a little bit different, as something unique as you don't see. Just like that Nissan we talked about a little bit ago, the Jeep Comanche is not something that a lot of people see on the road, so it'll set you apart from others. We're looking at the 1986 to 1992 models. They came with the absolutely legendary Jeep 4-liter straight 6, The power this thing made was 173 horsepower at a 220 pound-feet of torque, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. 0 to 60 time, again, it's a truck. You're at about 9 to 10 seconds, give or take a little bit. You can find these things 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive. I would try and stick with the 4-wheel drive ones if you want to maybe get into overlanding, do a little backyard trail action, throw some tires on it, or simply be one of those people that has a pickup truck that's classic and you want to keep it with that old school 80s look. Think Back to the Future if you've ever seen it. Now, you can do a nice easy lift kit. 2 or 3 inch lift kit. It's not going to break the bank. Something you could do on the side on a weekend project with a buddy. It's nice. And quite frankly, it's maybe something that you can enjoy doing. Now, you can change the differential, put a locking rear diff in, front diff. You can do all sorts of stuff there. I would personally recommend possibly taking that to a shop to do. But some of the other things are different bumpers you can add to it. It's a Jeep, so the community out there is huge. Arguably one of the biggest off-road or biggest aftermarket community is the Jeep community. So you can add front or rear bumpers to it. You can add a winch to it, a headlight or rack bar in the back. You can add all sorts of lights and body panels and different things, and you can mod this vehicle out to meet whatever needs you want. Now, these were 5 vehicles, 5 cars, and 5 trucks that I thought were something cool on a budget that could set you apart from others, but you could really enjoy. If you have one of these vehicles or are considering maybe one after watching this, let me know. And let me know and comment below if you decide to go out and get one, and I'd love to see it. Or I'd love your thoughts on what you thought of these vehicles if it's something that you think is really neat. Thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe. See you next time.